In February 2018, the president of the Philippines called his country's most famous beach island a cesspool, and 2 months later he closed it entirely for 6 months. Yet a few hundred kilometers away, another Philippine island just kept collecting the world's best island awards, year after year. Same country, same tourists, so why does Palawan keep winning where Boracay collapsed? Here's the thing about best island lists. They measure beauty, and beauty is not what failed on Boracay. What failed was everything you can't photograph: sewage pipes, easement laws, the boring machinery that decides how many people can float in a lagoon at once. This episode is about that machinery, because it, not the beaches, is the real reason Palawan is still standing. Palawan is the Philippines' western frontier, a long, narrow dagger of land roughly 450 kilometers from tip to tip, rarely more than about 40 wide, laid between the South China Sea and the Sulu Sea. The province is really an archipelago of more than 1,700 islands, sitting closer to Borneo than to Manila. Filipinos call it their last ecological frontier, and for once, the slogan is doing real work. Because here's what almost nobody tells you. Palawan isn't a typical Philippine island at all. Most of the country was built by volcanoes, but Palawan is a stray fragment of the Asian continent, ancient limestone that rifted away and drifted southeast as the South China Sea opened. Rain and sea then spent millions of years dissolving that old continental rock into towers, caves, sinkholes, and lagoons, the exact scenery that ends up on every award ballot. In the north, that limestone becomes El Nido's Bacuit Bay, where karst cliffs rise straight out of turquoise water. The Big Lagoon is a wide emerald channel walled in by vertical rock. The small lagoon is an enclosed pool you enter through a gap in the cliff, barely wider than a kayak. Across the water in Coron, the same rock tells two different stories. Kayangan Lake, often called one of the cleanest lakes in Asia, is fresh water layered over salt, dissolved out of the karst, and beneath the bay lies a Japanese supply fleet, sunk by American carrier aircraft on September 24, 1944, now some of the finest wreck diving in Southeast Asia. And near Puerto Princesa, the limestone performs its best trick, a river that flows 8.2 kilometers underground before emptying straight into the sea, its lower half brackish and tidal, a complete mountain-to-sea ecosystem inside a cave. UNESCO inscribed it as a World Heritage Site in 1999, and in 2012, it was named one of the new 7 Wonders of Nature. So let's see the receipts. Readers of Travel and Leisure voted Palawan the best island in the world 4 times: 2013, 2016, 2017, and 2020, the last of those with a score of 94.83. Nothing flukes its way to 4 wins in 8 years. And the run isn't over. In April 2025, U.S. News and World Report ranked Palawan #1 among the world's best islands to visit, ahead of Sardinia and Mauritius. To be fair, it doesn't win everything. The Maldives took Travel and Leisure's crown in 2024, but for more than a decade, Palawan has simply never left the conversation. Now, the twist that turns a pretty island story into a real one. The island that won Travel and Leisure's world's best title back in 2012 was Boracay, and in 2016, Condé Nast Traveler's readers voted Boracay the best island in the world again. Less than 2 years after that vote, the president was calling it a cesspool. Boracay is about 10 square kilometers, and in 2017 it absorbed roughly 2 million tourists, with much of its sewage flowing untreated into the sea. On April 26, 2018, the government closed the entire island for 6 months. Not a beach, not a resort, the whole island, by presidential order. When Boracay reopened, it finally had rules. No more than about 19,000 tourists on the island at any moment, and roughly 6,400 new arrivals a day. But look at the order of events. Boracay got its limits after the collapse. Palawan's story runs the other way around. Because when Boracay closed, every tourist town in the Philippines heard the same message. You could be next. And El Nido was named the next cleanup target within weeks. Government inspectors found 99% of El Nido's tourism establishments violating environmental laws. Structures inside the 3-meter coastal easement were ordered demolished. And by October 2018, the tourism department had issued a formal warning. Then on December 1, 2018, El Nido did the thing that still defines it: hard caps on its crown jewels. The big lagoon now admits 60 people at a time, the small lagoon just 30. Motorized boats are banned inside, so you anchor at the mouth and paddle in. The two lagoons were even split into separate day tour, so no single itinerary could crush them. But the caps only worked because the machinery already existed. Back in 1992, Palawan got something no other Philippine province has: its own environmental law, with a standing council and a zoning system that grades the entire province, ridge to reef, land and sea. When the crisis arrived, Palawan didn't need to invent institutions. It just had to switch them on. You can see the same philosophy at the Underground River, which was rationed long before rationing was fashionable. Today it admits 900 visitors a day, deliberately below the roughly 1,400 that carrying capacity studies say it could handle, on a strict no-permit, no-entry booking system. And in Coron, protection wears a third face entirely. Kayangan Lake sits inside the ancestral domain of the Tagbanwa people, who hold legal title to the land and the waters around it and run tourism on their own terms. Most of the island's lakes stay closed as sacred sites. Far offshore, Tubataha Reefs, a World Heritage Site since 1993, is watched year-round by rangers and open to divers only about 3 months a year by livey-aboard boat. So count the models on one province's doorstep: state-imposed caps in El Nido, indigenous ownership in Coron, rangers on a reef in the middle of the Sulu Sea. And beneath all of it, geography quietly does half the work. Palawan disperses some 2 million visitor arrivals a year across 450 kilometers of coastline and hundreds of islands, where Boracay concentrated the same number onto a single beach. One is a pressure valve. The other was a pressure cooker. Now the honest part, because this channel doesn't do fairy tales. Palawan avoided the collapse, but it has not escaped the pressure. El Nido's town beach failed the safe swimming water standard every year from 2019 to 2023, and the new sewage plant runs at about half capacity, because while most businesses have connected, only a tiny fraction of town households have. The awards measure the lagoons. Nobody votes on the pipes. If you go, and you should, timing matters more than most guidebooks admit. The dry season runs November through May, with the calmest seas and clearest water from February to April, while the southwest monsoon from June to October brings rain and canceled boat tour. The quiet sweet spots are November and May, still dry, minus the peak season crowds. Puerto Princesa is the main jet gateway, and here's a detail that has quietly broken older guides. Since late March 2026, the small planes to El Nido fly out of Clark, north of Manila, not Manila's main airport. From El Nido, a fast ferry crosses to Coron in about 3.5 hours. Give the full loop 7 to 10 days because Palawan punishes hurry. It's also still refreshingly affordable. Island hopping day tour run roughly 1,200 to 1,800 pesos, about 25 to 30 US dollars, lunch included, and beds range from $10 dorms to 5-star island resorts. As for choosing, El Nido is lagoons and beaches, Coron is lakes and wrecks. Divers head to Coron, first-timers to El Nido, and the smart itinerary does both. So why does Palawan keep winning? Not because it's the most beautiful island on Earth. The Philippines alone has more than 7,000 islands to choose from. It keeps winning because when the warning shot came, it already had the laws, the councils, and the caps to ration its beauty instead of selling it to exhaustion. Boracay shows what happens when paradise outruns its plumbing. Palawan is the ongoing test of whether a head start, honestly used, can last. That's a question worth coming back for, and we will. Thanks for traveling with me, and I'll see you on the next one.